Good evening. My name is Nichelle Wilson, Training and Program Manager with the City of Charlotte Community Engagement. And thank you all so much for joining us tonight for our workshop on Vision Zero. We are joined tonight by Charlotte Department of Transportation Zero Community Coordinator, Sierra Bratton, and Sierra is going to share with us all about Vision Zero. Before we get started, just a couple of things. This is being recorded, so the recording will be available in about a week on our Training on Demand page. I will put that information in the chat once we get started. I will also send you all a PDF copy of the slides that Sierra shares tonight, so you'll receive that probably in the next day or two, in case you want to refer back or share it with any of your fellow residents in your neighborhoods. And we will hold questions until the end. So you can either use the question and answer feature at the bottom of your screen, or you can type your questions into the chat. If you like, I will also allow you to come off mute and ask a question if you choose to do so. So we will go ahead and get started. So Sierra, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to get ready to share my screen with you all. All right. So again, my name is Sierra Bratton. I do work for the City of Charlotte in the Department of Transportation, and I am the Vision Zero Community Coordinator. So if you have not heard about Vision Zero, I am excited to share with you what this strategy is all about. And if you have heard about it, hopefully you learned something new or can provide some additional feedback for us today. So today, I want to share more with you about my role in Vision Zero, share our goals, how the issue of traffic safety impacts you, your family, and friends, some leading causes of crashes, what our task force is doing to address these crashes, and then also what you can do. So just a little bit more about myself. I have a background in media and communications. And so in addition to engagement, which is a huge part of my role, I also manage all of our communications, PR, and media relations initiatives and relationships. So that's a little bit about what I do. For example, this month is Women's History Month. And if you go to our social media feeds, you'll see some spotlights on women in transportation who specifically support the Vision Zero strategy. So different digital campaigns like that. And then, for example, on Saturday, I was out at a community event. So really a variety of things that I do to support this strategy, but it takes a lot of us to make sure that we are reaching the goals that we have set. So a little background on Vision Zero. It started in Sweden in 1997 to address what we're calling a public health crisis, because serious injury and fatal crashes are happening at extremely high numbers, and they're preventable. So since the start of Vision Zero, traffic deaths dropped by 30% in Sweden. And obviously there are different factors to different cities and states, but some cities have seen zero serious injury and fatal crashes. So our goal here in Charlotte is to get to zero by 2030, and that is a huge goal. But if we don't say zero, what do we say? Do we say Vision 4, Vision 5? I could be one of the 4 or one of the 5, and no one should lose their life to a traffic crash. So this next slide shows you some different Vision Zero communities across the country. And we have several here in North Carolina that are already established Vision Zero communities, or they are in the process of creating their Vision Zero action plan. This summer, I'll actually head to Chapel Hill and meet with all of the North Carolina cities, and we will talk about some strengths and some opportunities that we're experiencing, whether we're at the beginning of our process or a little bit further along, like we are here in Charlotte. And so also, as I mentioned, I am just one piece of the Vision Zero Charlotte puzzle. Of course, the Charlotte Department of Transportation takes the lead, but we also have a task force of several different city and county departments, healthcare facilities, our Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system. We are all working together to address traffic crashes. And so you'll see on the screen, our task force commitment is, as a community, it's our responsibility to eliminate traffic deaths and serious injuries for all who share Charlotte streets by 2030. That means you should be able to get safely from point A to point B, whether you are in a car, walking, biking, rolling, transit, rideshare. It should not matter. You should be able to get to where you're going safely. And so I want to encourage you, if you're taking notes or if you can remember this, to visit crashnotaccident.com. And so if you'll notice throughout this presentation, I have not used the word accident until this slide. I've used the word crash. We can also use incident or collision, but we strongly believe at Charlotte DOT, and you'll notice across Vision Zero cities, that we believe that crash is the better term to use, because if we use the word accident, it's generally no causality behind it. So traditionally, if a crash takes place, there is a reason for it, whether it's, vehicle issues, if the driver, makes an improper decision. The three top reasons that we see statistically for serious injury and fatal crashes, and even just our little fender benders, is distracted driving, driving under the influence, and speeding. So those are all choices that people have made when they get behind the wheel. And so we believe that it's best to use the word crash versus accident. And crashnotaccident.com can give you a little more insight on that as well. So this slide is kind of talking about just some overarching numbers that we see through Vision Zero. We are collecting data of all the crashes that occur within city limits. CMPD will go out and they do their investigation, but then we have staff from CDOT that go out and do a separate investigation as well, to look at all the different circumstances and see, okay, what is it that possibly contributed, or what could have been done differently design-wise? What can we look at here that we can maybe implement at other intersections or on other streets so that an incident with these circumstances does not happen again? So on average, crashes are up per year in Mecklenburg County. And just to note how serious this is, the time to the next crash is 12 minutes and the time to the next injury is 24 minutes. And so what we want to get across to people is that human life is priceless. When you think about a crash taking place, it's not just the people that are involved in it. You have to think about the officers who come out to the scene, or if it is unfortunately a fatality, think about the officer that has to go to that loved one's home to let them know what has happened. If the person survives and they have injuries, think about the hospital staff. Any type of potential traumatic brain injuries, that person may need physical therapy, speech therapy, all these different specialists to be able to try to have some type of a normal life. So it really impacts all of us. Your loved ones, your friends, your coworkers, it's a ripple effect. And so we just want to remind people of that. So why do we have Vision Zero in Charlotte? Going a little deeper. In 2020, 71 crashes resulted in 71 fatalities on our streets. and 21 pedestrians also lost their lives. And unfortunately, people walking and biking are involved in less than 3% of all crashes, but they account for almost half of the fatalities. So you have to think about folks who do not have this huge vehicle to protect them if they are involved in some type of incident. They are more vulnerable users. And so what we have to do is ensure that there are better facilities in place for people who are walking, biking, and rolling, so that if for some reason someone makes a mistake, because we are human, but if someone makes a mistake, that there's not a serious instance or a fatality that occurs because of that error. And so Vision Zero strategy is heavily focused on 2 E's. Depending on who you talk to, there can be 5 E's, 8 E's, there are a lot of E's. But the biggest 2 that we focus on are education and engineering. So I work a lot on the education piece when I'm out in the community. You know, everyone, like I said, is impacted when a crash occurs, but specifically targeting education to our younger students, to our teens who are new drivers, to adults, to just remind them, like, yes, okay, you may have taken driver's ed several years ago, but you can always use this reminder. And then also our seniors. We try to target different information and reach these different audiences in a way that it will be most impactful for them. And from the engineering piece, you know, I shared with you that we do go out. We have CDOT staff that goes out and does their own investigation. Also, there are some slides coming up where I will share with you some of the things that are taking place in the city to hopefully keep folks safer as they are traveling out and about. And another thing to note is that Vision Zero is an injury reduction strategy, not a crash reduction strategy. And so what we mean by that is we know that crashes will occur. There's going to be somebody who is not paying attention and they tap the person in front of them. But the goal is that there are no serious injuries and no fatalities. So that's really the goal. We know folks are human and we are going to make mistakes, but they should not lead to serious injuries or fatalities. And I also mentioned to you that the Vision Zero strategy is data-driven. So this map that you're seeing on your screen is what we call the High Injury Network, or the HIN. And so the HIN maps all of the serious injury and fatal crashes across the city. And so this iteration that you're seeing is from 2016 to 2020. And so we now do it in 5-year periods to just kind of monitor where things are taking place. This data helps us to figure out where we need to be implementing infrastructure, where we need to be doing more education, because obviously there's more severity in these crashes that are taking place in this area. And so if you see on the map, the darkest red color is where there were either several fatalities or several serious injury crashes. And so the majority of these instances are happening in the ARC in West, North, and East Charlotte. And so obviously we want to do education and engineering all across Charlotte, but we noticed that those are areas that cause a little more concern. And so when we are looking at different projects to implement and we're looking at where to place funding, we are putting the Vision Zero lens on and we're putting an equity lens on to make sure that the distribution of projects and the distribution of funding is equitable to be addressing where we're seeing the most issues. And so when we talk about safer streets, we're talking about implementing or upgrading pedestrian crossings. We're talking about implementing new bike lanes, sidewalks, leading pedestrian intervals, which I have a slide on that a little later to tell you more about, but also complete signal improvement projects. So just all the different elements of what creates a complete street to ensure that no matter what mode of transportation you are utilizing, that you are comfortable and you're able to get to where you're going safely. And so looking a little more closely at some of the engineering projects that you likely have seen across the city, one is called a pedestrian hybrid beacon. And these are going to increase. You're going to see more and more of these being built across the city. These are activated by the pedestrian by pushing the push signal. And as you can see, that it's at the yellow phase, which means that cars need to be slowing down or coming to a complete stop. And I'm actually going to go to the next slide because it goes a little deeper. And we have these handouts that show you exactly what a driver should be doing and exactly what the pedestrian should be doing, depending on what the signal is showing. So we actually have this available in a PDF format on our website, as well as a video format to show you how to properly use these signals, and to make sure that people are getting the education on how to utilize these properly. So another piece of infrastructure is called the rectangular rapid flashing beacon. So this one is similar, but it is different. It is focused on the pedestrian and it is implemented by the pedestrian pushing the button. But this one does not have overhead lighting. They are on the side. And as you can see, oh, I'm so sorry, I went backwards. You can see with the pedestrian symbol, right below that are some LED lights. And so when the pedestrian pushes the button, those lights start flashing. And so there are different rules based on transportation guidelines that can, identify which type of pedestrian signal goes where. And so you can request different signals near your neighborhood or on roads that you know have a lot of pedestrians. And so we'll take that into consideration if we're not already looking at that area and determine what makes the most sense based upon those standards to be implemented in a particular area. And so now we're going to talk about what you can do to help prevent serious injury and fatal crashes. We definitely want you to be safe and we want all of your loved ones to be safe. So these are things that you can do that you probably already know, but these are just reminders and also that you can share with other folks, especially if you have anyone in your life who is just starting to drive or will be driving in the next few years. So thinking about time cost, does speeding really save you time? It does not. I mean, you may get to where you're going about 30 seconds quicker, but is that worth your life? Or is that worth someone else's life and the consequences that come with that? Also, lower speeds equal less severe injuries. So the faster you're going, the higher the impact. And those higher speeds are what cause the serious injuries and fatalities. So just reminders, not to speed in general, but definitely do not speed up to turn, because when you think about it, coming up to an intersection to turn, that is a greater opportunity to have conflict with someone who is walking or someone who is biking. So you definitely want to be more vigilant as you're coming up to different intersections and areas to turn. You should not speed up to pass someone. And definitely at night, you need to pay attention to your speed as well, because when you have less visibility, that just increases your chances of having an unfortunate incident. And speaking of speeding, this is just a visual that's backed up by data to show you how severely speed can change things. So if you're driving 20 miles per hour and you unfortunately hit a pedestrian, they have a 9 out of 10 chance to survive. But if you are going 40 miles per hour, only 1 out of 10 pedestrians will survive. And so we just want to really hone in on speeding being one of those top 3 causes of crashes. And another thing I'd like to share with you is what we call a road diet. So that is when you remove travel lanes from the roadway to utilize that space for other modes of transportation. And you'll see some of the benefits on the screen. I won't read them all to you, but essentially one of the biggest ones is that there's fewer lanes for pedestrians to cross. So you've got a better opportunity for them to get across the street. There's also the opportunity to install bicycle lanes. So you're providing the opportunity for more modes of transportation than just the motor vehicle. And then this is also used as a traffic calming measure. And when you look at the before and after, you just have the cars versus 2 travel lanes, a turning lane, and bike lanes. And the more modes of transportation that we're able to implement on a street, that helps it to become a complete street environment, which is what we want. If I want to go to the grocery store and walk, I should be able to do that and have the facilities to be able to do that safely. So another consideration of speeding is your cone of vision. So essentially, the faster you go, the smaller your cone of vision. You can see through the visual, if someone's going 25 miles per hour, they have a pretty good cone of vision for other folks that are around them versus going 45, 60, or 80 miles per hour. You are slowly losing that cone of vision. Once you get to 80 miles per hour, you're not able to see any of those folks who are trying to cross that street. So we want to be mindful of speeding as it relates to our cone of vision as well. And then also your vehicle stopping distance. So in addition to speed, you also have to think of your reaction time. So when you think of your physical ability, your mental ability to react, if someone stops in front of you, or if you zoned out for 2 seconds and now that light is red and you need to stop. Also your braking ability. So depending on the vehicle that you're driving, the size of it, the year, all these different factors come together and impact your ability to stop safely when you're driving. So always keep that in mind. I always say too, making sure that you have everything that you need to be as safe as possible. For example, I wear glasses. I should absolutely not be driving without them. So making sure if you are supposed to have, some type of corrective lens, or if you have any other instances that are restrictive for you to be able to drive, to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do before you get behind the wheel. And then we also mentioned distracted driving and just wanted to point out that there are many factors to distracted driving that can include, disregarding a traffic control device like our pedestrian hybrid beacon or rectangular rapid flashing beacon that we mentioned earlier, improper turn, lane change or backing, failure to reduce speed. These are all categories of distracted driving that we need to be mindful of. And then there are also a variety of types of aggressive driving as well. So you can see some of the visuals include tailgating, weaving in and out of traffic, and improper passing. So we just really need to work on our behavior. That's really the biggest thing that I try to encourage, is we all need to change our behavior so that we're not just thinking, I'm running 15 minutes late, I've got to get there, or, just thinking about the self, but think about the others around you, and just remember to be more courteous on the road. And this next slide is we've kind of been talking about, some very impactful stuff, and these numbers are good ones to share. So when we talk about fatal crashes and the use of seat belts, more folks are actually wearing their seatbelt than are not. We need to continue encouraging folks to make sure that they buckle up, because it can make a difference, especially on the severity of a crash. But also, as far as impairment, more folks are actually not driving impaired than those that are. So that does give us some hope, but obviously the numbers, can still be improved. So just continuing to encourage driving sober and always wearing your seatbelt. And this slide is just a reiteration of the fact that folks who are walking and biking account for more than 1/3 of all of our traffic deaths. So you can see the actual crashes by mode versus the people killed by mode. And this is just another visual to stress how important it is to make sure that we are providing safe travel options for everyone, not just those in a vehicle. And so we also just have some information that we recommend to pedestrians and bicyclists so that they can be safer and more vigilant. As we know, we cannot control people who are, behind the wheel if we are a more vulnerable road user. So just some things that can be helpful if you do walk and bike. And then also, I have some information on the Pedestrian Refuge, which is not a signalized engineering opportunity, but it does allow for a protected space in the center of the street to allow the bicyclist or the pedestrian to essentially cross halfway versus having to cross the entire street and potentially be in harm's way. So this is another option. I know I had them outside of my neighborhood. I see them up along the major street. So these are also opportunities that we have available to implement. And I don't want to forget to mention that the Charlotte Department of Transportation was awarded $4.5 million from the U.S. Department of Transportation to address pedestrian, bicycle, and intersection safety. So our department is working now to finalize where those dollars will go to make sure that we're implementing these opportunities for more safe travel. So that is some good news that we have. And then also just wanted to share with you some of our task force members. Housing and Neighborhood Services is a part of our task force. And so, like I said, we all work together. We meet quarterly to, report out, to look at the numbers, to talk about the engagement that I'm doing and what other members are doing to address traffic safety. As residents, you all are welcome. We love empowering folks who want to be traffic safety advocates. So you are more than welcome to join the task force meeting. They are not closed. So if this is something you're interested in, my information will be available to you and I can get you connected. And this next slide is just a summary of our collaborative guiding principles for the task force. And the biggest thing which you see in our logo is that our streets are our responsibility. I can't alone change this issue that we have with crashes. It's not a Department of Transportation thing. It's not a City of Charlotte thing. It takes all of us, our task force members, our residents, to work together. If you see issues in your neighborhood, you know, we want to hear from you because we all live in different, parts of the city. And so we have to help each other to identify where issues are occurring and work together to determine what the best ways are to mitigate those issues. And so one thing that I would love for you to do, either right now or after you hop off of this call, is to visit charlottenc.gov/Vision Zero. If you scroll down just a little ways, you will see a hyperlink that says, take the Vision Zero pledge. I would love for you to take the Vision Zero pledge and join me in committing to be safe on our streets. You can dedicate your pledge to someone in particular, or you can just do it for our community, the city of Charlotte, the state of North Carolina, whatever you choose. But essentially, committing to these key items here: staying sober and alert on the road, wearing a bike helmet, yielding to pedestrians, following the speed limit, driving without distractions, and following the rules of the road. You do not have to put your full name. You can just put your first name, but we are capturing zip codes because we are trying to make sure that we're aware of, where this education is really impacting people and who are committing to being safer on our streets. So would love for you to take the Vision Zero pledge and share with your family, friends, and coworkers. You will also find on our website, obviously, more information about Vision Zero in general, but we have a resources tab as well. So information on those pedestrian refuge islands, the pedestrian hybrid beacon, how to use those. We have different videos for anyone interested in accessibility. We have some videos on some of our accessibility implementation, especially for those, walking who may be visually impaired, and those different types of infrastructure that are interacting all the time with our signal phases. So there's just a wealth of information. And if there's anything that you don't see that you'd like to see or like to know more about, please reach out to me. So again, I have our website here. I have my personal email and my cell phone number. We also do have a general email box. So if you want to send something to our general email box, it's cltvision0@charlottenc.gov. And then my email is sierra.bratton@charlottenc.gov. So I would love to hear from you. And I am happy to take any questions that we may have.
Thank you so much, Sierra. So we did have one question in the chat, and this one referred to your slide about the Vision Zero network. So Frank asked, why was Hoboken, New Jersey not included on the slide? He said that the city has 600,000 and they've been successful implementing some of these programs. So I'm not sure if the map didn't include everyone or.
Yes, so this template was created, it was either in late 2019 or early 2020. So we have just kind of been using it as we share, but that is correct. They have seen much success, and the local media has actually interviewed our Vision Zero program manager about them reaching zero and kind of what that means for Charlotte, and kind of the differences between there and here. So yes, that is accurate.
Thank you. Do we have any additional questions? You can either pop it in the chat or the Q&A, or if someone would like to come off mute, please raise your hand and I will call you up so you can ask your question. Okay, let's see. We have a question from Sharon. Sharon asks, you mentioned seniors and teens. What about mental health and medical conditions?
Yes. So I think the biggest thing to note is that my position, as far as the community engagement, is not even a year old. So I will have been in this position a year next month. And but I've been with the city 3.5 years. So I've been in some capacity supporting Vision Zero for that entire time. We would absolutely love to expand and reach more communities with diverse abilities, as I prefer to call them. But I am one person, so slowly working to build up my contacts and make connections. So please, if you have contacts or if you work for an organization that would be interested in me coming out, I would be happy to do that. I will share, last summer, we worked with Lion Services off of North Tryon. If you're familiar with them, they are an employer that mostly has visually impaired or blind employees. And they do have a pedestrian hybrid beacon outside of their facility. But unfortunately, last summer, someone was struck by a vehicle. They had the right of way. The vehicle did not adhere to, the red solid light, which obviously means to stop. So we met with Lion Services. We met with Metrolina Association for the Blind. And we decided to reach out to Jamie Bowl at WBTV. He was very open to coming out and learning more and trying to spread awareness. So at the time, Councilmember Larkin Eggleston also came out, and he was able to put on a pair of, I'm trying to think of the word, essentially the goggles changed his vision. So he had the experience of a visually impaired resident, and he tried to cross the street, and it's very hard, which is why we're really working hard on the education piece. But there was a full special on WBTV following that interaction. So obviously that's just one example, and there are a lot of residents that could absolutely benefit from connections like that, and having community conversations on how we can ensure that folks with diverse abilities are not left out and that they are included as we are making decisions as far as pedestrian safety and just traffic safety in general.
Thank you. I guess a good segue. Our next question is from Monica. Monica asks, I feel people are speeding and red light running without impunity. Who is taking care of this?
Yes, so it is definitely a huge issue. So we do work with CMPD as well as the Sheriff's Office. They are both on the Vision Zero Task Force. And so we do lean on them for enforcement. And so especially when we know that there are issues in certain areas, especially as it relates to the data, because, especially with crashes and the DMV 349, officers are able to indicate, if it was just one motor vehicle involved, two or however many, if someone was speeding. So we can kind of look back at the data and say, all right, we're seeing an issue on XYZ Street, and we think you all should go out there and do some enforcement. So we do lean on them. And of course, they have their own, ways of identifying areas as well.
Thank you. You're killing it with the segues. The next question, is there an updated heat map for traffic incidents, and is there a public access list to see the areas that are being prioritized?
Yes, so you can actually see our high injury network map on our website, charlottenc.gov/Vision Zero. It's available to you there. There are also, there's access to see what projects are coming as well. And that's not as easy to get to. We are currently working to update the Vision Zero website so that you can just go to Vision Zero and say, hey, what pedestrian, what bicycle projects are coming that we can be looking for.
Thank you. Our next question is from Joyce. Joyce wants to know, are there any indications that many crashes are due to no lighting on the roads?
That is a great question. We definitely know that lighting can be an issue. And we do have a street light coordinator who works on the residential street lights. And then she works with Duke Energy to monitor and make sure that there are upgrades taking place on the thoroughfares. Also, some of the funding from the US DOT grant will go towards street lighting. There's a specific amount. I want to say I'm not even going to quote myself because I'm going to get it wrong, but that information is available online. So when we talk about, the pedestrian intersection and bicycle safety, we are including funding to go towards street lighting as well.
Awesome. Our next question was anonymous. Does the traffic humps in neighborhoods fall under Vision Zero?
Yes. So it more specifically falls under the neighborhood traffic calming policy. So you may or may not be aware that that policy was updated last year to actually make it a little bit easier when requesting traffic calming in your neighborhood. So now you no longer have to get signatures from your neighbors. What happens is you make the request. If it meets the requirements, then it will get added to the list. And the only reason that it may not happen is if someone, basically speaks up and says they're against it. So a postcard will essentially go out to every neighborhood instead of the resident who is requesting traffic calming. And there will be a window of time that folks can speak up against it. And if for some reason someone does, then there's a process that follows that. But yes, that is a part of the neighborhood traffic calming policy.
Thank you. And this question is from Frank. Regarding crash, not accident, has there been any push to educate the local news organizations to get them to change their policy? I see CMPD, WCNC, WBTV still regularly tweeting out accident. And then just a note, Jesse Singer's There Are No Accidents is a great read about this. And Frank says, thank you, Sierra, for all that you do. So has there been any push to talk to local news organizations about their use of the word accident?
Yes. So like I said, part of my job is building relationships with the media. In my previous role, I actually sent out press releases and had, control of the language that we use. And I still do to an extent now. But we have, every time we do an interview, we use the language crash. And then during that time with the reporter, if they use the word accident, we tell them why we use the word crash. Some take on quicker than others. It's definitely a process. But we do, in everything that we send out, we use the verbiage crash, and we do try to encourage them to use it as well. We talk about that, you know, nationally as well. And it's not just in Charlotte, it's across the board, that a lot of people still use accident.
Thank you. Any last questions? I'm not seeing any more, but I'll give you another opportunity. If you have a question, you can pop it in the chat, Q&A, or raise your hand. Going once.
And again, I just encourage you, please reach out to me, even if you just want to have a conversation and throw some more questions out there or some ideas. I'm all about trying to find new and creative ways to reach people and to educate people. So I'd be happy to speak with any of you further.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for the information that you shared with us today. It was very valuable. As I stated, this is being recorded, so the recording will be available on our training on demand page. I will follow up with everyone that attended tonight with a copy of Sierra's presentation and then some of the links to some of the resources that she spoke about tonight. So again, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me, you can reach out to Sierra, but we thank you all for spending your evening with us, and we hope that you got something valuable out of tonight. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it.